So welcome, Tolga. I understand that you are relatively new to DSI, and DSI, in fact, has invested in recently hiring 3 top strategists, including you. Tell us about what DSI has been up to. Tell us some of their client success stories that you've been involved with and what attracted you to this really energizing company to take a leadership role.
Sure. Thanks for having me here. 25 years of strategy consulting, some patterns evolved that I actually started taking a look at. Every time I come into client situations and we're sort of setting strategy in place, I realized that the strategy had been really sort of outdated by the time we got involved, and we had to do a lot of sort of rejiggering, in some cases actually leading to structural changes in the organization. And part of it was I started thinking, is there a different way to actually do this? That by the time we get involved in sort of developing strategy, actually it's not so outdated, and it has been actually evolving over time. And so that's actually what drew me to DSI. They actually have figured out a formula that's we call it adaptive strategic planning. Put a strategy in place that's not just sort of set in stone, but it's actually able to adapt itself according to changing market conditions. And the other thing was, in order for the clients to actually be able to adapt the strategy, they actually need the capability to do that. And so DSI has got the other side of the story figured out, which is the leadership side, building the leadership capability so the clients can actually drive the strategy to implementation and tweak it when need be. So I was surprised to find a company that actually did both sides of the equation. And so that's what brought me to DSI. And we've been working with companies across the board and just about any industry, large companies such as Merck or Microsoft or Pfizer or PepsiCo, or small companies as well. But the bottom line is we really put a visioning, a strategy in place, and then build the capabilities for them to adapt it according to changing conditions.
Which is really the holy grail of consulting, right? Because you're not only building strategy, but you're building the execution plan to make a real future difference.
Right, and in some ways the clients also are coming to us and saying, when you build the strategy, we're actually dependent on you to come back and tweak it. We're dependent on you to come back and reformulate it. And when we come in and actually build the capability in the client to do it themselves, and that actually relieves the dependency on the consultants on a perpetual basis. And so that in some ways you work yourself out of a job there, but as a consultant, if you really have true best interests of your client at heart, that's the true partnership that you need to create.
That is the true partnership, and in that kind of intimate relationship that you're experiencing with your executives that you work with, you're listening to what's actively on their minds all the time. Tell us about what you're hearing from the CEOs and C-level executives you're working with in today's environment, and how it's different from perhaps a year or two ago.
So CEOs are now really engaged in figuring out how their organizations actually can sustain to evolve the strategy in and of themselves. And the question is, how do we make that happen? And interestingly enough, DSI actually went out and did some research and found that there are 6 elements that we actually work with in the leadership side to really build capability in the organization to enable our clients to deliver on the strategies. And so this is the ability to interpret data, the ability to anticipate changes, the ability to actually challenge the assumptions, the ability to align the organization around decisions, the ability to decide effectively, and also to learn from various different experiments. And so this is one area where we've actually engaged with clients as they're trying to move their agendas forward.
So it's interesting because in large organizations in particular, often it takes a lot for alignment to create real change. And always True North comes back to what the customer wants. I understand DSI has done something recently, published something recently called 5 Ways to Know What Your Customer Wants Before They Do. Tell us about that.
And this is actually at the core of an offering that we have around customer centricity. So one of the things that we do with our clients is engage them with various different stakeholders in different ways that they have engaged before. And so customers are at the core and center of that. We help them figure out what activities they can engage with their customers in, and whether they're developing new products and services. Get your customers involved in figuring out what products and services need to be built out. Also, just engage with your customers as they're engaging with their customers to understand their challenges and what new things they're moving towards. And we're a future-centered organization, so we're actually looking at building the future. Engage with your customers to build the future with them. In a way, if you do all of these, if you engage and spend the time with your customers that way, you will be able to figure out what their needs are going to be before they actually come to tell you about it. And so that creates a unique strategic advantage for our clients in the market space.
In fact, one of DSI's unique strategic advantages is to be able to not just accumulate and research new ways of doing business, but they really are committed to sharing that information with the rest of the business community. I know Paul Schumacher, DSI's founder and executive chair, has published many well-known leadership and management books, including Decision Traps, Winning Decisions. What do you think are, in addition to his books, on the must-read list for executives today?
There are other books. I think Profiting from Uncertainty is one. Uncertainty, we're wired as humans to avoid areas of uncertainty, but in a business context it could be lethal. And so I think reading that book really opened my eyes in terms of, how do you reframe to look at uncertainty, not in a negative way, but in a way where you can actually extract some value from it. Another book actually that's out is Brilliant Mistakes, and that's actually around letting go of the fear of failure and experiment with new things, especially as innovation is now becoming top of mind with many of our clients. Learn from the experiences and the mistakes you make, and in some ways, some of them may turn out to be the sources of the next brilliant idea that you may have.
In fact, what you're doing is bringing these themes back to a concept that in the popular press has been really labeled resilience or grit.
Right.
And you're really teaching corporations to pursue that strategy.
Yes.
Great work, great contribution to the business community at large. I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.